What's up, everybody, and welcome to, once again, the Gimme. Why the Gimme? Because it's good. You guys know that. It's time to talk about the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro. That's right, just the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro. No AMs this week, so we're still calling it the Pro Am anyway. But coming up on the show, we will spin the betting wheel. We'll make a DFS lineup, and of course, give our perfect portfolios. I'm Jason Sobel from Golf Bet, along with, as always, my friend Amanda Rose. And for the first time, our colleague Justin Ray, the head of content from the 15th Club. Justin, you and I work together at ESPN. We work together at Golf Channel. And now we're here on the show together. Thank you for joining us.
I'm just tagging along, following you wherever you go, man. Hopefully we can pick some winners this week. Let's make some money.
That's the whole point. We're going to try to do that. So thanks so much for joining us. And speaking of picking winners, let's start out with one bet that we're making this week. Amanda, what's going on? What are you looking at this week?
You know, I like Kevin Streelman this week. I'm definitely going to mention him very shortly. And I know you guys like him too. But what about you, Justin? Where are you looking this week?
I'm going to make a bet right off the bat, that I'm just going to keep making until it doesn't make any sense anymore. And that's Will Zalatoris to finish in the top 10. 14 top 10s worldwide since the beginning of last year. More than any player on the planet. More than Dustin, more than Bryson. I know it's across Korn Ferry and PGA Tour, so a little bit different fields. But I'm going to keep making that bet until that guy just doesn't contend anymore.
Yeah, Will Zalatoris, by the way, was not in this field as of, 5 days ago, and now he's the fourth favorite. So we'll be talking a lot about Will Zalatoris coming up. The first bet I made this week was an outright bet, Jason Day. I think there's value. I've got a lot of Day Koepka parallels that I'm going to make with Brooks Koepka winning in Phoenix last week, so we'll be getting to that. By the way, Jason, if you're watching, wear some layers this week. I know that back can seize up in the cold, so we'll be talking all about that. Let's get to the top of this board with some of those players included in this. No Dustin Johnson. We thought he was going to play. He maybe thought he was going to play, but after the win at the Saudi International, he withdrew on Monday evening, and oh boy, did those odds change, because he was 4-1 coming into this, one of the lowest odds for any favorite that we've seen in years. And so changing the entire board, Patrick Cantlay is now the favorite at 8-1. Daniel Berger and Paul Casey at 14-1. Berger coming off a miscut last week. Casey winning just a few weeks ago in Dubai. Will Zalatoris, who Justin Ray likes, and I think the rest of us like as well, 18-1. Jason Day, my favorite, 20-1. And Francesco Molinari, trying to get a little resurgence going this year, 22-1. Let's get into our perfect portfolios. And as always, we're all looking for winners. We're all trying to figure out how to hit that green. And some of us have $100 to spend. Some of us maybe not so much. But again, as we always say, it doesn't matter. High stakes, low stakes, high volume, low volume. We all want to find some winners. So Justin, the good news for you is that we've given you $100 to spend this week.
Nice.
The better news for you is you can turn that $100 into something much more than $100. So where are you going with your portfolio this week?
Well, first off, I'll go with the guy that I mentioned earlier, Will Zalatoris. I'm going to put $50 on him to finish in the top 10. I mentioned that he has the most top 10 finishes worldwide of any player in official events since the beginning of last season. His ball striking numbers carry him everywhere. 4th on tour in strokes gained approach, 4th in tee to green. He's 6th on tour in scoring average. This is a kid who has worked his way up from not having status, finishing high on the Korn Ferry Tour. He's now in the top 50 in the world. This is a guy we're going to hear from a lot moving forward. And like I said, I'm going to keep betting on him to finish in the top 10 until he proves me otherwise. He had a down week last week in Phoenix. He finished 17th. So, a rough go for him, only a top 20. So that's the first call I'm going to make. And I'm with Amanda on Kevin Streelman. If you want the definition of a course horse at Pebble Beach, this is the guy. I've got $25 on him to finish in the top 10, 5 straight top 20s in this event. The last 5 years, on Pebble Beach golf links, he's gaining more than 3.5 strokes on the field per round, far and away more than any player. You might think, oh, the guy who does that might be Phil, might be Day, Spieth, another one of those past winners. No, it's Streelman, 3.5 shots on the field per round. He leads all players in birdie average on this course the last 10 years. He leads all players in strokes gained tee to green here the last 5 years. I keep going. All these superlatives where you typically find a guy like Dustin Johnson or Brooks Koepka on one of these recent course history runs, but it's Kevin Streelman. Another big thing I like about him this week, on courses under 7,100 yards, he's a really good player. It's where he makes his money. He averages about 1.6 strokes gained per round on the shorter courses on the PGA Tour. For comparison's sake, Brooks Koepka averages 1.5 on short courses. So a lot of value out there, I think, for Kevin Streelman this week. And another guy I like, he's from my alma mater. That's not why I'm picking him. I've got real legitimate reasons to pick this guy. Peter Malnati. I got $25 on Pete to finish in the top 20 this week. Pebble Beach, year in, year out, shortest course on the PGA Tour, right? Pete, he doesn't hit the ball particularly far, makes his money with above average iron play and specifically his putter, one of the best putters on the PGA Tour. He finished 11th here last year. He's in the top 10 on the PGA Tour in birdie average, which is a surprising statistic for a guy like Malnati. Following his round, I don't recommend it if you have heart problems. He's an up and down roller coaster guy. I kind of think of him as like Diet Jordan Spieth in that regard, where I mean, he might make 7 birdies and 5 bogeys and route to his 70. It's always going to be interesting following him. But for my first go around, thank you for the $100. I'm going to go Zalatoris top 10, Streelman top 10, and Pete Malnati the top 20.
Let's see if we can turn that 100 into a lot more than that. Amanda, where are you going with your money this week?
Well, so Justin's new here, and I never saw Justin's picks at all this week, and Justin and I share 2 of the same picks. So we'll get to that. The one that actually differentiates is going to be Jordan Spieth. I'm going to put $2 on a top 5 for him. He's won here in the past, 9th at the AT&T last year, 4th last week at the Waste Management. We're seeing some really good signs from him, which is great coming into an event and in venues where he has had so much success in the past. So as long as he can keep the ball somewhat in play this week, I think he'll have not too hard of a time playing well. I think he does have a good chance for a top 5 finish. But I'm going to go down now. Kevin Streelman, I had for top 10. I was going to put $2 on him. I won't go into too much detail, but 2nd, 7th, 6th in his last 3 years here. Like Justin said, he's consistently gaining strokes during those rounds. He's been playing better recently. 22nd last week at Waste Management. And one of the areas where Kevin excels is his iron play, and he gained strokes on the field last week with his iron play. So I think when you take that coming into a place like Pebble, where it is a second shot golf course of really small greens, it will bode really well for Kevin. So I do love him for a top 10. And then I'm going to put $6 on a Malnati top 20, which is another one Justin went with. He finished 11th here last year, 10th 2 weeks ago at Farmers, 14th at Sony. He played really well in that fall swing, and you can usually get some really good odds on him, even when he kind of comes out and is a first round leader around there. People, he doesn't finish, right? We're talking about the up and down rounds. He doesn't really finish that well. So I think top 20 this week might be a good play because this is a course where he's had success in the past. It fits his game really nicely. And I think this is somewhere where we can see him do well. Now, Jason, do you have any overlapping picks here, or are you taking totally different route?
Not here. I do like some of those plays, and I've got some Kevin Streelman later in the show, so I will get to that. He doesn't have Larry Fitzgerald hanging with him this week, but I still think he'll be okay. My first play with my $100, I'm putting 50 on, and I'm doing this before I say what it is to accentuate sort of that not every pick has to be a sexy pick. Not every bet has to be like, hey, I'm going to win $1 million on this bet. Sometimes we just make a bet to win some money. Sometimes just, hey, let's feed off the bankroll a little bit and let's make some money here. So the first one is Andrew Putnam, top 40 at plus 150. Andrew Putnam last week, 0 bogeys in 72 holes at the Waste Management Phoenix Open. And so I think that's a good play. He's a West Coast guy who, as Justin pointed out on our Action Network podcast this week, doesn't drive it that well, but driving might be neutralized a little bit at Pebble Beach this week. So I like him. Going $25 on Max Homa for a top 10 at plus 350. Max Homa is a guy who played his college golf at Cal. Last week was a down week for Homa, and he finished in 42nd place. So I do think that he's a guy I am targeting basically throughout the entire West Coast. Played really well here a year ago. And then speaking of course history, there's not much on Harold Varner III. 1 missed cut and 1 start, but really good ball striking numbers last week. And honestly, this is a play just based on long-term form. I think Harold Varner at some point is going to win or come very close to winning a PGA Tour event. And why not take it against one of the most inferior fields that he will play against over the next 6 to 12 months? So $25 on HV3, only for a top 20, but I don't mind a top 10, maybe even a top 5 on Varner this week. So those are our perfect portfolios. Hopefully they're a little more perfect than they are on some other weeks. Let's get to our betting wheel. Our super producer, Evan Abrams, has loaded up the wheel this week. Top 10 props, top 20, make, miss, cut, nationality props, and Jordan Spieth, whose name just happens to be sitting on the wheel. What are we going to do with Jordan Spieth this week? So let's get to spinning the wheel. Evan, are you ready?
I'm ready to roll. Spieth's on the wheel, Phil's on the wheel, Streelman Malnati not on the wheel. So you guys, not on. We're going to avoid that for now. So spinning it for the first time. See how we go here. All right, we are going to nail. Oh, it's a top 10, and we're going to go to Amanda. Amanda, give me a top 10 you like.
Daniel Berger, he's been playing so great. He's always lurking around the leaderboard, and I think he'll fare well this week, especially without the amateurs. I mean, I could be wrong, but he doesn't really seem like someone who would love to shoot the whatever for 6 hours. And he's just a really naturally talented player, and I feel like Pebble brings that out of a lot of players when they get there. It's tight course, it's short, the greens are really small, putting and irons are really key. So I like Daniel Berger for a top 10 play this week.
All right. I'm honestly hoping we get a Spieth here, maybe a Phil. I always love those. So let's hide top 10s, spin away. All right, let's see what we get here. Next up, it's Phil or Spieth. It's on the line. It's Jordan Spieth. Let's go to Justin. Justin, you're the guest. You're the new guy. Jordan Spieth, what do you got?
Okay. Look, don't get mad at me because no one was as excited yelling at the TV watching Jordan Spieth make putt after putt shooting 61 Saturday. Trust me. I know he's won at this golf course in the past. He led the field in Phoenix last week in strokes gained approach. I just do not feel confident enough in his ability to put 4 consistent rounds together I'll say he makes the cut, but I won't go any further beyond that in terms of making a bet. It's just too volatile in terms of what he's been doing the last, 3+ years at this point, in terms of just how wild he is off the tee. I know that the driving numbers say that they can be a little bit neutralized this week at Pebble Beach, like Jason alluded to, but don't hate me, but I'm kind of fading Jordan Spieth this week after the great week he had.
I don't blame you.
All I'll say is this: if he ever wins again, which I hope he does, the world's going to blow up because they're not going to be able to handle it. So let's hide Spieth. Let's spin it one more time for Sobel. Let's see what we got here. All right. It's going to be make, miss, cut, Jace. Give me somebody on either side. Let's go.
Okay. I've got a fun make cut for you, and it's probably pretty good odds this week. We had Rob Oppenheim on our SiriusXM PGA Tour radio show, Hitting the Green, earlier today, and Oppenheim was fantastic. He's a Massachusetts guy. He goes, I'm a mudder. I love playing in cold weather. It's going to be cold. It's going to be rainy. It's going to be windy. That's right up his alley. And he loves Pebble Beach. He contended there just 4 years ago in 2017. He said it's one of his favorite places on earth. So I'm taking Rob Oppenheim at a very cautious make cut. But hey, you want to take him for a top 30, top 40, maybe even up to a top 20? I don't have a problem with that.
Jason, speaking from personal experience, Rob also a good guy to go out on the town with in New Orleans. I'll just say that.
Well, he's also a good guy to go out on the town with in Orlando too.
That's my kind of people.
Hey, he's just a good dude to go out with. How's that sound?
Yeah, for sure.
Listen,
Evan.
I was going to say investing in Oppenheimer, never a bad thing. Thank you very much.
Oh, well done, Evan. Thank you so much. That's our wheel. And hopefully we've spun it correctly. Let's get into a little bit about Pebble Beach this week, because much like the American Express a few weeks ago, this is a little bit different than we've seen in past years there. As I mentioned at the top of the show, no amateurs this week, really different from the old Crosby clam bake. So it's just really, they're playing in groups of 3, and it's a 36-hole cut. Only 2 courses. Monterey Peninsula Country Club not in the mix this year. They will play 3 rounds at Pebble Beach and just 1 round at Spyglass, that being either the Thursday or Friday round for each player. And yes, as I mentioned, the weather is going to get nasty. Never higher than mid-50s. It's going to be wet. It's going to be windy, maybe 20 to 30 miles per hour for Sunday's final round. It's going to be really fun to not be there and watch on TV. Justin, I want to get into, what stat do you think is the most important stat that we should look at for Pebble Beach this week?
Well, the first thing I looked at when trying to make a list of picks, I like to take the average ranking of tournament winners at a particular venue and compare it to the PGA Tour average during that same time span. When you break down those numbers, driving distance and driving accuracy, particularly stroke skiing off the tee as well, not nearly as significant. That average at Pebble Beach way down compared to the PGA Tour average. And that makes sense, right? Because Pebble Beach traditionally is the shortest course on the PGA Tour. So it makes a little bit more sense. In contrast, greens and regulation, incredibly important this week, is a number you want to look at. Strokes gained approach, proximity to the hole, those averages are also much more significant than the PGA Tour average week to week. So fade away from the guys who gain a lot of strokes off the tee. I think you can find some value in some shorter players, like the guys we've mentioned. Kevin Streelman, not overly long. Peter Malnati, of course, in that group as well. Andrew Putnam's a name that's come up already. You might be able to get some value from, but that's the first thing I look at. Driving distance, a little bit neutralized this week. Driving accuracy, not as important. A guy like Phil Mickelson, you can see, he's been driving it all over the planet for 30 years and winning all along the way. You can see why, he's got 5 wins here, tied for most all time of any player in this tournament. So it kind of makes sense with how the numbers back that up.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, Justin, because I think a lot of people will look at it this week and say, well, guys who hit it long and straight, don't they have an advantage everywhere? And it's yes, but that advantage is probably neutralized this week. So that's not as important. So you look at the guys who are the better drivers in this field and you say, maybe not this week. Maybe save that for a course that rewards driving a little bit more than Pebble Beach does. Let's get to our favorite matchups. Amanda, where are you going with your head-to-head this week?
So I'm actually going to contradict myself a little bit earlier and agree with Justin a little bit here. I'm taking Francesco at plus 105 over Jordan Spieth. Like I said, this contradicts my earlier pick, but this is a good pick for anyone that does really want to fade Spieth this week, because you're getting really good value on Francesco. He's here. You got him even money over Jordan, whose value reflects a lot of recency bias and not as much what he's really done as of late. So we've seen Francesco win at great links courses before, aka the Open that everyone was talking about last week when he beat Jordan and Xander. So I think he's a great value here, and he's a guy that really thrives on these older accuracy courses. And I love the number. I love him plus 105 over Spieth, because like I said, Spieth is just getting so much recency bias in his numbers right now. So I love the Francesco play over Jordan. What do you guys think?
So I am, first of all, I do like that. And hey, you can hit both bets. You said Jordan Spieth for a top 5 earlier, Francesco Molinari to beat him in a head-to-head. That doesn't necessarily mean they both can't cash. So hold on to those tickets, Amanda. I am going to jump on the Kevin Streelman bandwagon. You guys have both already talked about Kevin Streelman and his history here. I won't go over everything again, but I'm taking him at plus 120 over Will Zalatoris. And I hate fading Zalatoris, but I am a sucker for those plus money head-to-head matchup bets, and plus 120 on a guy who plays really well here year in, year out just feels too good to pass up. So it could be a matter of Streelman finishing in 3rd and Zalatoris in 4th, but I will still take a matchup bet that I can get some plus money on with a couple guys that should have really good weeks. Justin, where are you going?
First of all, Amanda, love the Molinari pick. Awesome iron numbers for him in back-to-back top 10 finishes, something he hadn't done in a long time. I'm going with a little Oklahoma State head-to-head here, and I'm going to take the lesser-known guy over the guy who's in every commercial break on golf telecasts week in, week out. I'm taking Alex Noren over Ricky Fowler. Look, Ricky does not have a top 10 finish in 13 months. I mean, he's really fighting his golf swing, really struggling with his game. I have no doubt that he's going to get back into that top 20 place in the world. I just don't think it's happening this week. Alex Noren's numbers aren't a whole lot better during that time span. His metrics aren't terrific, but he shot 64 Thursday at Torrey Pines, 67 in the opening round at Amex. I see a little bit more promise from Alex Noren's game. This is more about me not having a ton of confidence in Ricky Fowler. By the way, he hasn't played in this event in 9 years, so there's probably a reason behind that. So I'm going to take Noren over Fowler, the lesser-known Oklahoma State product.
Also, in trying to find guys who are good cold weather, rainy weather type players, I don't know, maybe going with a guy that grew up in Sweden isn't necessarily a bad idea. So I don't mind Noren this week either. We've got a really cool contest coming up in just a second. We asked people to give us their favorite top 5 bets for this week. We're going to pick a few of them, and those people have a chance to win some actual money this week. But first, let's do our favorite top 5 props this week. Amanda, what we got for top 5?
I'm going with the guy that you really like, Jason, Sam Burns. He played well last week at He played well last week, and he played well at Farmers. He's gaining a lot of strokes on the field over his last 5 events. I think his game fits this course really nicely. The strokes he gained, his strokes gained stats are really solid across the board, and he's really, really solid with iron play, which I think will be pretty great this week, like I've already mentioned. And this is the first time he's playing the event, but like I said, I think this course really fits his game well, and I think this will be a good week for him, especially not having played the event before. I think it'll be a good week for him in the top 5. Jason or Justin?
I will go. And speaking of Jasons, I'm taking Jason Day here. I mentioned him off the top of the show. Guys, maybe this is a little recency bias in my mind. Maybe I'm looking for a theme here, but last week in Phoenix, you got Brooks Koepka, former #1 player in the world, a guy who had some coaching changes in his personal team, a guy who started the year with 2 missed cuts, a guy who was back at a place where he'd had success previously in his career. Jason Day, all of those things apply. Former #1, coaching changes, a guy who is going back now, and he's missed 2 cuts, and a guy who's going back now to Pebble Beach, where he's been in the top 5 each of the last 4 years. So I like that lightning can strike for a 5th time in a row for Jason Day. So he is my not only an outright play this week, but I'm taking a top 5 as well. Justin?
Jason, you talk about Jason Day. Over the last 10 years, if you isolate scoring average at Pebble Beach Golf Links and Spyglass, he has the 3rd best average. So that just speaks to the kind of performance he's had on these golf courses that we're going to see this week. I'm going a little bit further down the board. This is a little bit off, a little bit more of a flyer of a pick, but I'm going to take Rafa Cabrera Bello to top 5. I think in a field that's not particularly strong, you get a guy who finished 4th at Abu Dhabi 2 starts ago, 3 for 3 making cuts on the European Tour, and some pretty strong fields in the desert over there. He missed the cut here last year, but finished 26th and 22nd the previous 2 years. He's a player who spent nearly 30 weeks in his career in the world top 20. He's got experience beating some really good players. I think he's got an opportunity to make some hay here against a field that isn't particularly strong relative to what he faces, week in and week out. There's just a little bit of value there for Rafa. So maybe a little bit of a flyer, but I'll go down the board and take Rafa Cabrera Bello to top 5.
I'm with you. I've got some Rafa that I'm going to talk about later in the show, but perhaps the most undervalued player this week in relation to his talent level. I was surprised at where he came in at the board. He's 125-1 right now for an outright. I mentioned the contest, big contest this week, as we do every week. We asked for your favorite top 5 prop play this week, and we've got thousands of people that were tweeting us. Amanda went through every single one of them. If we pick you, and if your bet hits, we will pay you some cold hard cash, the equivalent of a $10 bet. So Amanda, who's got a shot at a little action with us this week?
So first one's going to go Grow Tons 7, 3 consecutive top 10s at Pebble Beach, second last year, Kevin Streelman. So he's on the Justin and the Justin Rose train here. Next guy, we have Spear, SPIR 0017, said Sam Burns plus 750. Gonna pick him every week until he wins. Another guy that's been watching the show. And finally, WVU fan 0183 says, give me Paul Casey, to which I say, you can have him. He is gonna be jet lagged. I don't know if I want anything to do with Paul Casey this week, but he's very talented, one in Dubai, but I know Justin likes him, but I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that this week.
Yeah, I think we're going to get to some Casey in just a second here. You're right, Amanda. Going from California, Middle East, California, with a win in between and no breaks in that span. I'm just tired talking about it and thinking about it. I can't imagine how Paul Casey feels right now. By the way, Paul Casey's favorite golf betting story of his entire life was on the seventh tee of Pebble Beach when he was a rookie back in 01. And he had a contest with Phil Mickelson, who said, you can't throw a ball onto the green from the tee box. He not only threw it onto the green, he hit the stick. He almost made a hole in one with it, almost threw out his shoulder as well. Paul Casey is paired with Phil Mickelson again for the first 2 days. I hope they recreate that story. 20 years later, I hope Paul Casey throws one onto the green at some point. I don't know. I guess can't do that during
He's old. He's not going to do that anytime soon.
He threw out his shoulder at one point, so he probably won't. So anyway, let's get to our ultimate DFS lineup. As always, we're going to pick 6 players on DraftKings, fit them into a roster, and hope it's a winner for you guys. Before we start, Justin, do you have any fun sort of personal stories about winning on DFS at all?
This is my one bona fide I will always go to. Years ago, I bought my wife's engagement ring with winnings from the 2015 Wyndham Championship. It was about that time in the relationship. I hit big. I never knew a Ryan Moore birdie streak would be so meaningful to my life. So it's a romantic tale as old as time that we'll regale our grandchildren with someday. How Grandpa won Grandma's engagement ring with money from the Wyndham Championship. Thank you, Greensboro, for all you've done for me in my life.
At some point, Justin, I will get you together with Ryan Moore if you haven't told him this story already, and we will have to tell him this story, and he will, I'm assume, take full credit for your marriage.
He should. No, I mean, look, without him and Bill Haas, who knows where I'd be today? I'd be living alone.
That's fantastic. Amanda, start us off with your first pick.
I'm going to go with Doug Gim. He's a player that has really come into his own over the last several months. He's been playing very well lately. I've been really bullish on him, and you guys know that. He was 5th at Amex, comes into this event 9th in strokes gained total against the field. All of the categories are really solid, the only exception being off the tee. But like we said, that's not going to be a huge factor this week. 7,500, I still think he is great value considering he is a lesser known player, but 7,500, lower owned guy. I like him a lot. He's going to start our lineup this week.
Jay Ray?
Oh man, I mean, early tension in Team Justin Rose. Amanda, I just don't share the same thoughts about Paul Casey. And now, because he's going to be on our team. My first pick with you guys, I went with a dude over 10,000. I know that I'm not doing much to ingratiate myself to my new teammates, but look, his last 3 starts, 8th, 1st, 12th. In his win at Dubai, he gained more than 17 strokes on the field, tee to green. Nobody else gained more than 12. Yeah. He is striking the bejesus out of the golf ball. He has great value against a weak field, I think, even at over $10,000. Second in the field in strokes gained approach at Dubai. He finished runner-up to Phil Mickelson here a few years ago. And maybe he'll, go back to those good memories that Jason talked about, winning a bet against Phil, throwing a golf ball onto the green. Who knows? But look, I don't want there to be tension here on Team Justin Rose right out of the gate, but I'm sorry. I got to put Paul Casey on the roster at 10-4.
It's okay. I was there. I was in Dubai. I saw him play a few holes. It was phenomenal. So it's a fair pick. I just think jet lag might get the best of some, like Phil Mickelson too, because he's old. They're all old.
Don't let him off the hook, Amanda. He just sat down and spent half of our money. I mean, with a guy who's going to lose in strokes gained fatigue this week. So I'm not on Casey.
I was given free reign, people. Okay, I was encouraged to spend freely.
That's why we put the lineup together.
Spend money to make money, Sobel. Let's go.
I'm going Jason Day because I keep picking Jason Day for everything this week. So I'm all in on him. But again, I will mention that it's going to be cold. And if Jason Day withdraws this week, God, I will just absolutely lose it. Like, just finish. That's all I want, Jason. Like, if he plays, he'll play well. I just got to make sure that back doesn't seize up on the 3rd hole Thursday morning at Pebble. And he's like, sorry, too cold. I'm leaving. So as long as he gets through it, I think Jason Day will be pretty good. Amanda?
And I mean this in the nicest way possible, but I think Jason Day will be A-okay in terms of body warmth coming up. I mean that in a nice way, but I think he'll be fine.
Puffy vest this week, you think?
Yeah, I got some internal vest or whatever too. It'll be good.
Yeah. Amanda, that's what prosperity looks like.
Yeah, it really does. He grows a beard and gains weight and is just like, I don't care. Like, it's extra cushioning for the back. I get it. All right, so we're going to go Sam Burns here. I'm not going to say much of anything because we already talked about him. He's played well last week and at the Farmers. His game fits nicely for this course. Justin, where are you going with the next pick?
I'm going to pick a player who really outperforms his baseline on shorter golf courses. I know it's a number I like for Kevin Streelman, but Stuart Sink, he's a guy over the last 5 years, he's averaged more than 4.5 birdies per round on courses under 7,100 yards. That's ranked 7th best among that collection on those shorter golf courses. He won in the fall in California on POA greens at Silverado. I think 7,200 is a pretty good price for a guy who's been playing some good golf. He's 6th on the PGA Tour this season in greens and regulation. It's not too often a guy who's closer to 50 than 40 is up near the top in that statistic. So let's go with Stuart Sink at 7,200. And I have effectively left Jason with like $100 to pick the last guy.
We always do.
Yeah. Welcome to the show, Justin. And you're just fitting in perfectly because I have nothing left to spend with the last pick here. I've got 6,300 left to spend. I thought about NorCal guy, Brandon Hagee. Actually went to school at Cal. He's a SoCal guy. I don't know. The driving doesn't necessarily help this week. NorCal guy and Nick Watney, results just haven't been good. JJ Spawn is where I wound up. JJ Spawn at 6,100. Do I love JJ Spawn this week? I do not. Did I need a player who fit into this roster so we could put it on the show? Yes, I did. And so at some point, I sat there and looked at all those names and I went for the lesser of all those evils and I went with JJ Spawn. And maybe it'll work out. I bet he's low owned though, guys. So there's our.
We're going to be the only 3 people watching his shot tracer besides the Spawn family.
Yes. Me, Mr. and Mrs. Spawn will be very interested in how he plays. We got Doug Gim, Paul Casey, Jason Day, Sam Burns, Stuart Sink, and for some reason, JJ Spawn this week. So we'll see how that works out. We've got just a minute left here. Let's talk about some long shots. One player that maybe you haven't mentioned yet on the show or haven't mentioned enough. Justin, where are you going?
I'm going with Andrew Putnam for my long shot. You mentioned it earlier. The first player ever at TPC Scottsdale to go 72 holes without a bogey. He's 29 under par in his last 9 PGA Tour rounds. One of the shortest players on tour, but he makes his living with his irons and his putting. That fits the mold here. Top 5 on tour in strokes gained putting each of the previous 2 seasons. I'm taking Andrew Putnam way down the board.
Amanda.
I'm going with Bo Hogue, who somehow got autocorrected to Bo Hong. Since missing the cut at Sony, he's 16th, 18th, 36 for his last finishes. He's gaining a lot of strokes on the field, and at the Farmers, he putted great. So I think as long as he can just keep the putter going this week, he's not a bad long shot. Jason, where are you going?
I've got RCB. I've got Rafa Cabrera Bello. Since we talked about him already, and Justin already brought him up in some of his stats, I'm going to also mention a guy that was brought up on our PGA Tour radio show, Steve DeMeglio from Golf Week and USA Today, brought up Brandt Snedeker. 2 wins at Pebble Beach, plays really well in cold weather, in bad weather. Hasn't been playing great lately, but says that, the game's coming around. So maybe a Brandt Snedeker play this week. We have mentioned a whole lot of names for this week's AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. I cannot wait for this thing to get started. Thanks so much to everybody out there for watching the Gimme. Check out all of our content every single day, every week on Golf Bet. For Justin Ray, for Amanda Rose, for Justin Rose, I'm Jason Sobel. Good luck with all of your bets this week. Here's hoping you guys hit the green.